I find hearing about others' struggles amidst a pandemic comforting, realizing I am not the only one who is challenged like I have never been before. It has been hard to watch my new life crumble away. On August 12, 2019, I closed on a house and moved to it about 10 days later. I then hired staffs to help me out physically while I revised my first novel. For the first time in several years, I sent holiday cards out. I even spent a few weeks with my parents during the holidays. When I got back home in January, I thought life would be business as usual. In February, I had sinus and bladder infections, and I went to urgent care and the emergency room several times. Each time, I felt like COVID-19 was looming over me more and more. I still remember my last emergency room visit. When I arrived there, the waiting room was almost empty. About 4 hours later, when I was discharged, that same waiting room served as a campground for many people, some in their pajamas and some wrapped in blankets that they brought from home. Most people appeared to have simpler symptoms. Down deep, I knew those poor people had the coronavirus, so I got out of there as fast as I could. The next day, I canceled 3 appointments scheduled for the following week. And so, I started quarantining in the second week of March for a couple of months, so I thought. In these couple of months, I lost 4 support staffs, and replacing them proved to be next to impossible. Luckily, my last 2 staffs moved in with me, making sure that I stayed alive in a stifling pandemic. Luckily, I sometimes could escape our deadly reality by revising my first novel. I spent 10 years creating vivid scenes showing how people should and should not interact with a child like Matthew, a little boy with significant special needs. Throughout these carefully crafted scenes, I have given the readers a lot of digestible information to illustrate how to facilitate learning, communication skills, a sense of responsibility, and play for these kids. The techniques and activities presented this book can easily be adapted to accommodate different kids' interests, abilities, and personalities. Instead of planting dandelions in pots like Matthew does, other kids may like to plant real flowers or vegetables in a garden. This novel includes dozens more of these childhood activities. None of the scenes included social distancing, masks, and the need for quarantining. Not knowing how long the COVID pandemic would last, I felt that I may mislead some readers to believe that it was okay to carry out similar activities with children with special needs without adhering to COVID public health measures. What could I do? While I was mulling this question over, I became more and more curious about what Matthew would be like as an adult. On a Saturday in early June, I woke up at an ungodly hour with an epiphany. My epiphany consisted of changing the entire plot to include several chapters showing Matthew as a grown-up struggling with his life in the COVID pandemic. I got this idea when I was almost finished with my manuscript that was scheduled to send it to my editor by July 1st. Being in quarantine, I had plenty of time on my hands, so I processed tearing my book apart, putting the chapters in a different order, writing 3 brand new chapters, and creating new parts to make the book flow. And yes, I managed to email my editor my new manuscript on July 1st. By the end of November 2020, my first novel called When We Pause was available on Amazon.